Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today and for participating in the short poll. I'm Olivia Anastasio, the Digital Marketing Officer for Blood Donation for the Sickle Cell Society's blood donation project, Give Blood, Spread Love England. 15,000 people in the UK have sickle cell disorder. We are here today because we need your help. 40,000 more Black heritage blood donors are needed to support people suffering with severe sickle cell, who often need regular blood transfusions. There is an urgent need for ethnically matched blood. Closely matched blood is less likely to be rejected by people having frequent blood transfusions, but still only 1.5% of blood donors in the UK are of Black heritage. There are many different types and subtypes of blood. One subtype of blood is called RO, which is 10 times more common in people of Black heritage than in white people. You can support us. We need more people to get involved in our work to increase awareness of sickle cell for more Black heritage donors. If you can give blood, please sign up today at bit.ly/SCSGiveBlood. I will also send the link in the chat box shortly. Giving blood once can save or improve up to 3 lives, and the donation itself takes around 15 minutes. It's safe, easy, and in 6 to 12 weeks, your body would have replaced the blood you donated. If you can't give blood because you have sickle cell or for any other medical reason, there are many other ways you can help us. Today, we ask that you pledge to support us through raising awareness, share our link, and encourage friends, family, and your networks to donate. Follow us on Instagram at Give Blood, Spread Love, and help us advocate for the need for ethnically matched blood online. Link us with one organisation that we can share information about blood donation and sickle cell too. Could we present at your place of work? Help us organise a group blood donation for your colleagues. Are you part of an event we could attend? Join us in turning up the volume on sickle cell and blood donation so we can continue to save and improve the lives of people living with sickle cell. Thank you again for joining today, and I will now pass things over to Seyi to begin today's event on the No One's Listening report explained. Hi, Seyi.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction and the reminder of just how important it is to raise awareness about blood in relation to sickle cell. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us your time today to join us, the Sickle Cell Society, to hear more about the national report that has been released into the public domain, to hear more about the inquiry, the report, the achievements so far, and the very long road ahead of advocacy and continued campaigning that is before us. So I will now say the very cliche line that I'm sure you are all very used to, and I will attempt to share my screen. Okay, so Olivia, you may need to give me sharing rights.
Let's see if I can do that. Just give me a moment.
But just whilst we're doing that, it would be really wonderful to know just the variety of who we have in the audience today. Very few of the names are familiar to me, but if you're okay with sharing, potentially whether you have sickle cell yourself, or whether you are a carer, whether you're a health worker, or whether you're just here to learn more, really. If you pop that in the chat for me, that would be really useful and helpful to know who I'm addressing this evening. Okay, lovely. So I think that's worked now, Olivia. So I will now share. Okay, so Olivia, are you able to let me know whether you can see my first slide?
I can see your first slide.
Okay, wonderful. And it's excellent because we're on Zoom today, so I can actually still see the chat as well. That's helpful function, which you don't have on Microsoft Teams. Okay, so let's go for it. My name is Seyi Afolabi. I am the Parliamentary and Policy Officer for the Sickle Cell Society. Welcome, everyone. I can see the chat going. Great to see that we have some clinicians in the house, also some parents I can see, sickle cell patients themselves, a really good, nice mix this evening. So yes, so my name is Seyi Afolabi. I joined the Sickle Cell Society in June last year, and it's been quite a whirlwind so far, because I joined the organisation at a very pivotal time, and that was when we were right in the middle of this APPG national inquiry into sickle cell healthcare. So it's been I say whirlwind because the inquiry was quite intense, and then obviously releasing that into the public domain has been quite intense as well. But I've loved every second of my time with the organisation so far, and I'm looking forward to still what's ahead. Just very briefly about me as an individual, I grew up with family members who had sickle cell. So knowing about someone going into crisis, the medication involved, the frequent trips to hospital, it was very normal to me. And it was only as I grew up and went through the education and the professional system that I realized that my very normal awareness of sickle cell was not the case for everyone. So I studied law, and then I've jumped around in the NGO/advocacy field / Parliament field for the last few years. And then I joined the organisation in June. So the report. So the APPG on sickle cell and thalassaemia set about doing an inquiry which would seek to gather as much evidence and information from a wide range of people as to gain a general picture of sickle cell healthcare in the United Kingdom. Many of you on the call tonight, you may have even attended some of those inquiry sessions because they were open. And in the inquiry, we took evidence from clinicians, from sickle cell patients, from parents, from politicians, from senior members of the NHS, to really build a very holistic picture of what sickle cell patients go through in terms of the healthcare that they access in this country. Like I said, I joined the organisation when those inquiry sessions were taking place, and to be very open and honest with you all this evening, some of the sessions were they were overwhelming. They were deeply emotional, because for me, they were a reminder of the trauma that people with sickle cell still face when trying to access healthcare in this country. Many of the testimonies were profound and very powerful. And the aim of the report from the inquiry was to really summarize those powerful testimonies into a report, which would then go on to have the national change that we dreamed of as an organization. So we drew up the report during the summer, and I can't take any personal credit for the writing of the report. It was a colleague of mine, Aidan, who did all the writing, and it was a massive job to pull everything together. But I think he's done a fantastic job. Now, if any of you have actually read the report, the recommendations in it are extensive, and we didn't want to kind of leave anything out. So we've purposely made the recommendations quite extensive, and we've made the recommendations very specific. So each of the recommendations in the report is aimed at a specific individual or a specific panel or a specific body, so that it's very easy to say this is who is responsible for this recommendation from the report. Now, it's difficult for me to highlight which recommendations are more important than the others, because as far as I'm concerned, all of the I'm just keeping a quick eye on the chat. Olivia, I think some people are in the waiting room. Yeah.
Sorry, Seyi. It's because I've given you the hosting and I don't think...
Oh, I see. Okay, so let me just admit everyone then.
Sorry, I didn't want to take it back and then you lose the screen.
Lose sharing. Okay, I got you. So hopefully, if I pop back into the chat, Una, I think we should now have everybody in. And if I see any more pop-ups to let anyone in, Olivia, don't worry, I'll just take care of that.
Thank you.
All right, so as I was saying, it was really difficult for me to pull out for this presentation which recommendations are, I don't know, the top liners, because as I was saying, all of the recommendations for us as an organization, all of them are important and will go towards bettering the lives of those with sickle cell. However, just for the purpose of summarizing, if you want to say, I've picked out some of the recommendations which we can discuss a bit more tonight, and which I suppose are, if you want to say urgent, I think that's the best way of saying it. I've picked out the recommendations which are urgent, despite the fact that all the recommendations in the report are very, very, very important. So the first one that we've picked up is highlighting the substandard care on general wards and in A&E. Now, the reason for this probably being the #1 recommendation that needs to be addressed from the report is because this is where, if you want to look at it, not to be too grave, but this is where the lives of people with sickle cell are at risk. This is where we are losing people with sickle cell, when their crises are not being understood on general wards and in A&E, and their care when they go into hospital is being mismanaged. One of the things that came out in the report was that if someone with sickle cell is able to get past A&E and make it to one of the specialist wards, then sometimes, not all of the time, sometimes care is better. But obviously that's not acceptable. Care needs to be appropriate from the minute that you step through the doors of A&E all the way to when, you know, you're on your specialist ward, or whether you're in for something else. So for us, this is crucial. Tackling the care of sickle cell patients on general wards and in A&E. I've just seen Calvin's message that says A&E is a complete lotto as to, are they going to understand me today? Are they going to listen to me today? Am I going to get nurses who know what sickle cell is? It's a complete lottery, and that shouldn't be the case. And it's worrying that that's the story up and down the country. One of the points that was raised in the inquiry was that you sometimes have better chance if you go to a hospital in an area where there's a higher proportion of ethnic minorities or people with sickle cell, but that's, again, not always a guarantee. So again, we wanted to address the failings in providing joined up sickle cell care. Now, this is a focus for us because one of the things that came out very profoundly from the report is that when sickle cell patients are going into hospital, depending on where they are and what they're in for, there's like a complete disjoint between what one department of the hospital has said to another department and the flow of information around that sickle cell patient. So yeah, this again was very important for us. Recognizing, okay, how can communication around all the different wards and areas that a sickle cell person might come into contact with, how can that be better joined up? low awareness now of sickle cell among healthcare professionals and inadequate training. Now, for us as an organization, this is life-threatening. Going into hospital or speaking to healthcare professionals, maybe in an ambulance, and sickle cell patients raising again and again that they are the ones educating healthcare professionals about their condition, about their pain relief, about you know, whether or not to be given paracetamol or not. And imagine having to do this all from often being in a crisis yourself, which is debilitatingly painful. So this for us, again, is a top priority, raising awareness and understanding of sickle cell with healthcare professionals and ensuring that training is adequate across the country. Another key issue that came out of the report was negative attitudes towards sickle cell patients. And I want to be quite explicit with this point and highlight that the question of race came out very, very strongly from the report, that because the stereotype is that sickle cell is a Black disease or a Black condition, sickle cell patients often feel the negative connotations around their race and having the condition when they access healthcare. So there's a lot to be said about the question of race and how people are stereotyped when they go into hospital. And then lastly, inadequate investment into sickle cell care, which also covers inadequate investment into research into sickle cell. So those are kind of our top liners. Again, the report is freely accessible on our website, and you can take time to read all of the recommendations, which we believe are all important, and we'll be pushing for progress against each of the recommendations of the report. So moving on now to some of the achievements since the report was released in November. Now, for us, we were very determined to ensure that the release of this report would not just be another report that stayed on the shelves of people's, you know, proverbial cupboards. So we put together a comm strategy to make sure that we could raise as much national media coverage around the report as possible. And we were quite pleased that most of the big national newspapers and media outlets picked up the report. There were interviews, there were podcasts, there were articles written, and my next slide will kind of give a brief summary. So we were happy with the level of national coverage that the report got. The second achievement was the Westminster Hall debate, which happened towards the end of last year. Now, that for us was major because it was a lengthy debate in Parliament from key parliamentarians who were active in the campaign around sickle cell, posed directly to parliamentarians from the government. If any of you have seen the Westminster Hall debate, you'll know that there were some quite passionate personal testimonies shared from some of the MPs who have personal experience of sickle cell. And the government gave some responses in that debate, which we will be following up very, very keenly. We also received assurance from the Secretary of State and the Health and Social Care Committee that they will be looking into the recommendations of the report. The Royal Health Observatory have also appointed a clinician to lead work on sickle cell. And one of the last kind of achievements, which I would say, was that the report and the media coverage around the report offered, and I'm going to choose my words very, very carefully here, it offered a very small sense of hope to the sickle cell community. And I put here in my presentation to parts of the sickle cell community, because even though the report was a great milestone, we have to understand that the large majority of the sickle community are, number one, deeply distrusting of the political landscape and the healthcare landscape when it comes to the condition. Many of the sickle community, whether they have it themselves or whether they care for someone with sickle cell, are deeply traumatized by years of neglect and poor care. So I say that it offered just a small sense of hope for parts of the sickle cell community, as a way of, okay, something has been achieved. So moving on to my next slide. This is kind of a very quick summary of some of the national media coverage that the report received. It was in The Guardian, the Metro, The Independent, African Voices, and like I said, there were various TV interviews, radio interviews, articles, and so on. So moving on now, a very long way to go. The report was a massive piece of work, and we are so thankful to everyone who participated. Oh, have I stopped sharing my screen? Okay, let me go back. Sorry, everyone. I'm sure you're all used to tech glitches after 2 years of working remotely. Okay, I believe we're back. Let me open this. So Olivia, give me a nod if we're back. Okay, lovely. So a long way to go. Whilst the report was a massive piece of work, and like I was saying, we're so thankful to everybody who contributed to the report and shared their testimonies and shared their experience. And whilst we're very happy for some of the achievements that I've mentioned so far, and we're happy about the Westminster Hall debate, and we're happy that the government have said that they will look into the recommendations, you all know that it's nowhere near enough. And that's why I've entitled this slide "A Long Way to Go," because for us as an organization, the release of the report was like the beginning of the relay race. You know, now is when the hard work continues as to how do we actually implement all of these recommendations so that the sickle community feel the lived benefits of change, and that this work that we've done doesn't stay in ivory towers, and it doesn't stay high level policy talk in rooms and you know, in boardrooms. It needs to be practical change in hospitals, in education, on the ground. And that's why I say now is where the hard work starts, to make and to implement those changes. Again, it was very difficult to make this slide, because if you sat down with me one-on-one, there's 100 things that I would say need to be practically done today to improve the lives of those with sickle cell and their families and their carers. But these are just kind of, again, some of the more urgent ones, I suppose. And I'm sure that all of you personally will have your own thoughts about what is deemed urgent. So for us, one of the most important things that needs to happen is robust workforce planning for hematology wards. It's come to our attention that many hematology wards up and down the country are struggling. Staff are struggling because there's not enough of them. Staff are struggling because consultants are moving around. There are senior level retirements happening, which is all affecting how hematology units and their care are managed. So we are pushing with the NHS and specific hospitals who we've kind of singled out to look at their planning of staff. Linked to that is training and education of healthcare staff and nurses. And like it's been mentioned in the chat, the reason this is so important is because of the age-old issue of sickle cell patients going into hospital or interacting with healthcare professionals and not being understood, their condition not being understood, their pain relief not being understood, their care plans being ignored. And that's where we're having the life-threatening tragedies. So we are pushing strongly for education and training. Now, to be very specific for this forum tonight, one of the things that we've identified is that the training curriculum for nurses does not include mandatory specific training on sickle cell. So we've been in touch with the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and the feedback is that the curriculum itself is not designed to teach individual conditions. So it's designed to train nurses to work to a very high level of professionalism, regardless of the condition that they might come across. So our pushback to that is that's clearly not working, because sickle cell patients are encountering nurses who are administering abhorrent levels of care. So we're going to keep pushing on this one to make sickle cell mandatory. And we're going to be trying to work with the universities who deliver the nursing courses to pick up specific lectures on sickle cell training. Another key one for us is guidelines around pain relief. The amount of horror stories that we've received and that you have probably personally experienced of sickle patients going into hospital and waiting 5, 6, 7 hours for pain relief in pain, which is often described by sickle cell patients as, okay, if 0 is mild and 10 is the worst type of pain you're in, sickle patients often say in a crisis they feel like they're in 15 level of pain, and then waiting for 6, 7 hours for pain relief when you said, this is my care plan, this is the pain relief that I take. It's just unacceptable. And I have to try really hard not to get emotional when I talk about pain relief, because like I said at the beginning, I have grown up with family members who have sickle cell. So I have personally witnessed what a pain crisis looks like. So for sickle patients in 2021 and in 2022 to be offered paracetamol is just, to me, it doesn't make sense. So we're going to be pushing for the awareness around the NICE guidelines on pain relief. The next one, Royal College of Emergency Medicine and the Royal College of Physicians to develop guidelines for A&E and general wards about managing patients with sickle cell. Because like I raised earlier, the issue isn't just, okay, what happens to a sickle patient when they're on their specialist ward. It's about what happens when they're in A&E and in general wards, and whether staff are aware of their condition and how to treat it adequately. Next, NHS Trust to require that haematology teams are informed whenever a sickle patient is admitted. From what I know, this has already been picked up in one of the trusts that we've been we've been working closely with, because one of the things that came out from the report was that sickle cell patients are going into hospital and the specialist ward has no idea that they're in hospital. So on this slide, I could go on and on. You know, there's the question about free prescriptions, and the list goes on. But again, everything's in the report, and these were just some of the top liners that I wanted to share with us this evening. So moving on now, what can be done? By us as a community, by parents, by carers, by sickle patients, by those who just generally have an interest. Stay informed, stay up to date about the landscape of sickle cell awareness and advocacy. One of the things that I've done is I get email alerts whenever sickle cell is mentioned in Parliament or in the news. So just staying up to date, and it's amazing that you're all on this session tonight. Spreading the word, talking about sickle cell with people in your community, with people in your circle, with your workplaces, with colleagues, on social media. We all know how powerful social media is as a platform. We also developed a call to action after the launch of the report. So what I did is I have written a template letter, which anyone can kind of top and tail and send to their MP. So that letter is linked on our website. So you can literally just download the template, put your MP's name in and send it along to them to continue putting pressure on parliamentarians that the sickle cell community are not going to keep quiet, and we're going to continue pushing for change. Naturally, there's donating and there's fundraising, and then there's just staying in touch. And the reason that I put this on is because, like I said, I'm the Parliamentary and the Policy Officer for the Sickle Cell Society. So just in my role, I talk frequently with parliamentarians, and I think one of the things that is so powerful when I am in certain forums and in certain meetings is having your personal experiences to hand when I'm interacting with policymakers. You know, quoting statistics is fine, but when I'm able to say, I spoke to a mother or I spoke to a sickle cell patient yesterday, and this was their experience in their local hospital, that's much more impactful than statistics, I suppose, even though facts and figures are very important. So staying in touch with us as to your experiences and what's going on in your side of the world. And then my last slide is just to thank you all for listening to me speak very passionately about sickle cell. I always kind of apologize at the end of my presentations because I'm aware that I can start to raise my voice and move my hands just because I'm so passionate about sickle cell. So thank you all for your ears this evening. That's my email address, seyi.afolabi@sicklecellsociety.org. It's worth mentioning and saying that I do work part-time. So if I don't immediately respond to your email, I will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. We're on social media, so feel free to keep in touch with us on any of our platforms. So that's my presentation for the evening. I am going to stop sharing now, take some questions for about 10-11 minutes, and then I am setting myself a deadline to hand back to Olivia at 7:20. So I will stop sharing now. Okay, so back to my normal screen, and happy to take any questions that any of you may have. Lena has sent me a message to say, you're a wonderful advocate, never apologize for your passion. Thank you, Lena. It does mean a lot, and I feel very humbled to talk on behalf of the Sickle Cell Society and on behalf of parents and carers who've been fighting this battle for decades. and to still be having these conversations is quite frustrating. So we'll continue to march forward. Okay, so we've got a hand up from Bola. Bola, do you want to unmute yourself and ask away?
Hi there. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to raise a point and then ask my question. I put in the chat that I'm a sickle cell patient. And, I studied undergrad at Nottingham Trent University from 96 to 97, and as part of my dissertation, we were, because I did broadcast journalism, we were allowed to explore any topic we chose to. I chose to explore at the time the treatment of sickle cell patients in NHS hospitals. And it's funny that the recommendations that have come out from this report are the same recommendations.
Yeah.
Dissertation in 1996. And whilst I was studying in Nottingham for those 3 years, I had a crisis just once. And when I was admitted to the hospital there, I had to educate them as to what they needed to do to assist me with my crisis. So that was one time. So I think I came out relatively unscathed after 3 years, but that was quite telling that they didn't know about the condition. So yes, when the report was published last year, I didn't have a sense of hope. I felt quite hopeless in terms of thinking, I can't believe we're still raising the same issues.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm glad that it has received so much publicity. And I also put in the chat that I've sent the report to my local MP because I live in Islington. I just wanted to say, my question was, in terms of banging the drum regarding these issues that have been raised, do we have some achievements that we want to achieve by the year's anniversary of publication of the report? 6 months, a year, 2 years? What's the goal here in terms of how can we help in terms of keep banging the drum, or what do we want to see change by, say, year 1, year 2, etc.?
Yeah. So I am going to tie that in, Bola, with the question from Elle in the chat, who's also asked about the timeline for all of this. So we have, so the main avenue through tracking the achievements and the progress is going to be the Sickle Cell and Thalassaemia APPG meetings. So we hold about 4 to 5 of those meetings throughout the year. So we are going to be tracking progress through those meetings, and obviously those meetings are open, so everyone can attend them to hear how far we've got. And we'll be trying to be quite strategic about tracking progress, and individuals and organizations who we have specifically addressed recommendations to in the report, we will be inviting them to APPG meetings to basically inform us and the sickle cell community what progress has been made. So this is for you, Bola, and for anyone else on the call who's thinking about timelines. How do we keep the pressure on? If you're not already on the APPG invitation list, just send me an email and I'll make sure that you're on the invitation list for those meetings. So for the next 1 year, those key recommendations that I picked out in my presentation, those are going to be the ones that we're really going to try to drive home. And I'm like I said, I work with the parliamentarians, I work with the APPG. So for me, where I'm pressing the pressure is going to be on parliamentarians, those who are in government and those who are in other parties. Now, that's not the only way that we can continue to apply the pressure. Like I mentioned at the end of my presentation, social media is so important these days as a tool of advocacy. So continue to talk about sickle cell, continue to at your MP, continue to at your local hospital, and then there's obviously the more traditional channels of writing articles, raising it in the media. Yeah, I'm just very conscious of time, so I will stop there so I don't babble too much. But yeah, we are aiming for the next 1 year to have tackled those key, crucial recommendations that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. So you're welcome, Bola, and Bola, do stay in touch, because like I said in my report, how is that possible? That after decades, we're saying the exact same thing. And this again ties into the issue about race, which was unavoidable in the report, that, okay, has this been sidelined for so long because it's seen as a Black issue? But I won't go more into that, otherwise I can talk forever. So Calvin has asked, are there legal steps that we can take if the trusts and hospitals do not meet recommendations and their legal duties? So on this one, Calvin, I would say follow the complaints processes that the hospitals have. If possible, when you make complaints about hospitals or to hospitals, I think the Department for complaints is every hospital has a PALS unit, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's what you can do. What a tactic is when you send your complaint to copy your local MP into the complaint and to copy us into the complaint as well. Because sometimes even seeing that an MP is copied in, that a national organization is copied in, sometimes gets people's ears a bit more open when you're making complaints. Okay, so my wonderful colleague Yamide, do you want? I see your hand up.
Let me.
You want to come in now?
Let me just. Yeah. Hi everybody. Let me put the hand down, because otherwise I sometimes forget. Yeah. What I just wanted to say, Seyi, good. That there's so many people on the call, etc. A mixture. I wanted to speak particularly to people with sickle cell, just to ensure, because I think somebody said on the chat that, you go to places and some of the health professionals aren't aware of what sickle cell is, blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to draw attention to the two standards of care that the society has produced, because I'm not sure that everybody on this call, is aware of that, yeah? So we've got adult standards of care, which I think we produced in 2018. And more recently, we did pediatric standards of care. So this is the absolute minimum care, level of care you should receive when you go to any of these hospitals around the country. So if you don't know about that, please go to our website. In fact, what I might do is put the links in the chat. I'll try and go onto our website and do that. But I mean, you really have to go with as much ammunition as possible to make sure that these health professionals, know that the sort of care they should be giving you. Yeah. And as a society, we try to build that capacity in service users. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Just go into Justin's question in the chat. Has the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care given any assurances following the report? So yes, he has, and he agreed to meet with the chair of the APPG, who is Pat McFadden MP. So we're going to be following up to see if a meeting can be arranged, and we can get more than just a kind of vague statement. So we'll be following that up, Justin. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will again share my email address. Olivia, I will hand back over to you.
Thank you so much, Seyi, for such a brilliant presentation and for all your work. And thank you to everyone who has joined today for all your questions and messages. Sorry that if we haven't picked everything up as Seyi was speaking throughout. I will put in my email address so you have that as well. If there's anybody that wants to follow up on anything, please feel free to drop us an email. Before we end today's session today, I just want to remind you all, amongst so many other things that we've spoken about today, how urgent the need is for ethnically matched blood to support people living with sickle cell. We need 40,000 more Black Heritage donors, as I said at the start. And if you can donate, please register today. I'll put the link in the chat again before we leave. And if you're unable to donate because you have sickle cell or for any other medical condition, help us by raising awareness, share our link, connect us with an organisation, maybe your workplace or a club you're part of. All your support is welcomed and it really is life-changing. So thank you again for joining today. I would be really grateful if you can engage in this short poll, which will appear on your screens in the next few moments just before you leave. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and like I said, I'm just going to put in all the relevant links and my email address if anybody wants to get in contact. So thank you Seyi, and thank you everybody.
Thank you everyone. Thank you. I'll stay on the call for a few minutes just in case, and I'll do the poll as well.